The galaxy was wide, full of light and shadows, yet even in the darkest corners, whispers traveled fast. Among traders, soldiers, and even smugglers, there was one warning everyone knew: never scan a human warship. It sounded strange to young aliens hearing it for the first time, but to the older ones, it was not advice. It was survival. Captain Rallos of the Ketheri Dominion never believed in whispers. He was a logical man, born of a proud warrior race that feared nothing. For him, fear was a tool, a weapon to be used against others. So when his fleet crossed paths with a single human destroyer drifting near the empty border of the Orion sector, he saw opportunity, not danger. The human ship floated silent, its lights dim, like a wounded predator hiding in the dark. Rallos stood on his bridge, tall and confident, his 4 eyes studying the gray steel shape on the holoscreen. It looked old, nothing special compared to the advanced curves of his own fleet. His officers shifted uncomfortably, but none dared speak. The silence itself carried weight. Rallos finally broke it. Begin a deep scan. I want every detail of their weapon systems and energy core. Humans bluff too much. I will see their truth. There was a pause. The officers looked at each other. A small alien, barely more than a cadet, cleared his throat. Captain, perhaps we should not. There are stories. Rallos turned sharply, his gaze cold. Stories are for weak minds. We are soldiers. Do as I command. The crew obeyed. Fingers moved across glowing consoles. Energy hummed as scanners activated, invisible beams of light touching the human ship like curious fingers. For a moment, nothing happened. The destroyer remained silent, floating in darkness. Rallos smiled, certain he had proven the whispers false. Then, the lights on the human warship flickered. A deep vibration filled the void, faint but growing. The sound traveled through space, not real sound, but something stranger, something felt in the bones, even across ships. The crew shivered without knowing why. Report. Rallos barked. The sensor officer's face was pale. Captain, the scan. It bounced back. Our systems are reading us. What do you mean? Rallos demanded. I mean, our scanners show our own fleet. Our weapons. Our life signatures. It's like the human ship is looking inside us. The bridge fell into silence. Even Rallos hesitated. The destroyer's lights grew brighter, one by one, like an ancient beast opening its eyes after a long sleep. A cold message appeared on every screen in Rallos's fleet. No one transmitted it, yet all saw it. Do not look into the abyss, for the abyss will look into you. The crew froze. They had no idea what the words meant, but their hearts pounded as if some unseen presence had spoken directly into their minds. Rallos clenched his fists, refusing to show fear, yet even he felt a weight pressing on his chest. Cut the scan, he ordered. We cannot, the officer whispered. The link is locked. Captain, they are scanning us now. One by one, the Ketheri ships flickered with static. Consoles shut down. Energy cores dimmed. Weapons went cold. It was as if the human ship had reached inside their very hearts and squeezed. Panic spread across the bridge. Officers shouted, alarms rang, but nothing worked. Rallos stared at the silent destroyer, his pride battling the cold terror crawling in his veins. This is not possible, he muttered. They are only human. Yet deep inside, he realized this was why no one dared scan them. It was not fear of their weapons. It was fear of what stared back when you tried to see too much. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the lights of the human ship dimmed again. The connection broke. Systems on the Ketheri ships flickered back to life. Engines hummed. Weapons recharged. It was as if nothing had happened at all. The bridge was filled with shaking breaths. No one dared speak. The destroyer drifted silently, ignoring them, like a predator that had no interest in small prey. Rallos wanted to order an attack, to wash away the shame burning inside him. But he could not. Deep in his chest, where his pride used to burn bright, there was only a cold memory of those words on the screen. Do not look into the abyss, for the abyss will look into you. And in that moment, Rallos understood. The stories were true. That was why no alien dared scan a human warship. The Ketheri fleet limped away from the silent destroyer, engines burning bright but spirits dark. No one spoke on the bridge. Even Captain Rallos, who had never bowed to fear, could not find words. The human ship had done nothing yet had touched them deeper than any battle ever could. Hours passed. The crew whispered quietly, thinking the captain could not hear. They spoke of the abyss, of the message, of the cold feeling that had crawled into their minds. Rallos ignored them, but his silence only made their fear stronger. Finally, the fleet reached the safety of a neutral starport orbiting a gas giant. Docking clamps locked. Artificial gravity hummed. Life returned, but the crew remained uneasy. They avoided each other's eyes, as if afraid of sharing the same memory. Rallos retreated to his quarters, a chamber lined with trophies from past victories, broken blades, enemy banners, the skull of a rival commander. Once these things filled him with pride. Now they seemed hollow. He poured a glass of dark Ketheri wine and sat in silence, the words replaying in his head. Do not look into the abyss. The glass trembled in his hand. He set it down. He told himself it was nothing but human trickery, some advanced counterscan technology meant to frighten weaker minds. Yet even as he tried to believe it, a small part of him, the part that had felt the weight pressing on his chest, whispered otherwise. That night, as he tried to rest, Rallos dreamed. He dreamed of endless darkness stretching across the galaxy, full of eyes that stared back at him. In the center of it all floated the human destroyer, not old, not damaged, but alive. Its steel skin pulsed like flesh. Its engines throbbed like a beating heart. And in the dream, when he looked closer, the ship looked back. He woke in cold sweat. Meanwhile, across the starport, others who had seen the destroyer were also restless. Some drank heavily, trying to drown the memory. Others sat in silence, staring into space. One officer, the young cadet who had warned against the scan, whispered to a fellow soldier, I told you. I told him. The stories were true. They are not like us. Humans. They hide something. The soldier shushed him quickly. Do not say that here. Do not even speak their name loudly. But it was too late. The whisper had already spread. By the next cycle, the story of the Ketheri fleet's encounter with the human warship was moving across the starport, slipping from mouth to mouth like fire through dry grass. Traders carried it further, smugglers carried it faster, and soon the story was leaving the starport, racing across systems. Still, no one truly knew what had happened. Some claimed the humans used psychic weapons. Others said their ships were haunted, filled with the ghosts of fallen warriors. A few even claimed humans were not really flesh at all, but something older wearing bodies as disguise. Back in his quarters, Rallos stared at the holoscreen, replaying the sensor logs again and again. Every time he reached the moment of the counterscan, the screen glitched, the data bent, and for a fraction of a second his own face stared back at him. Not on the recording, but as if the ship had looked through the device and captured his soul. He shut it down, chest tight. The next day, he was summoned by his superior, Admiral Kelran. The admiral was massive, even for a Ketheri, with scars running across his scaled face. He studied Rallos with sharp eyes. I hear you encountered a human ship, Kelran said slowly. Rallos hesitated. His pride wanted to deny his fear, but the memory was too heavy. Yes, Admiral. We scanned them. Kelran leaned forward. And they scanned us back, Rallos whispered. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. You fool. Rallos stiffened. With respect, Admiral, You fool. Kelran roared, slamming his clawed fist against the table. Did you not know the rule? Did you not understand the cost? No one scans them. Ever. Do you think that warning was born from nothing? Rallos clenched his jaw. They are only human. Their technology. It is not their technology, Kelrin snapped. His voice dropped low, almost a growl. It is them. Do you understand? Humans are different. They were shaped by something the rest of us cannot name. They are shadows wearing flesh. When you look at them too closely, they look back. Rallos felt his blood run cold. For the first time in his life, he had no words. Kelrin leaned closer, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Pray, Captain, that the destroyer you saw does not remember you. For if it does, then even the stars will not hide you. The words struck harder than any weapon. Rallos lowered his gaze, his pride broken. In the silence that followed, only one thought echoed in his mind. The stories were not just warnings. They were survival. And now he had crossed the line. Captain Rallos had faced battles, uprisings, and ambushes across the stars, but nothing unsettled him more than the words of Admiral Kelrin. They echoed in his mind, heavy and poisonous. Pray the destroyer does not remember you. He tried to bury it, tried to return to duty as if nothing had changed, but it was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the cold steel shape of that human ship, floating silent yet alive. His crew saw the change in him too. The once proud captain now carried a shadow, and shadows spread quickly. The Ketheri Dominion noticed. Fear traveled fast through their ranks, and soon, the whispers became too loud for command to ignore. Orders arrived for Rallos to present himself at high command on the homeworld. He was not offered a choice. The journey was long, but no one aboard spoke of the incident. The crew avoided the subject entirely, as if words themselves could call the destroyer back into their lives. Silence ruled the hulls of the ship. Even the younger soldiers, once eager for stories, now kept their heads down. When Rallos finally stood before the High Council, he expected anger, punishment, maybe even execution. But what he found was something worse. The council chamber was dark, lit only by the soft glow of starlight through a massive viewport. The 9 counselors sat in silence, their faces hidden in shadow. Their voices, when they spoke, were quiet but sharp. "You have seen too much," one of them said. "You have touched what was forbidden," another added. Rallos lowered his head but forced himself to remain steady. "I acted as a soldier of the Dominion. I sought knowledge of our enemies. I did not know the danger was real." One counselor leaned forward, his voice like stone. "And now you do." There was a long silence. Rallos felt his throat tighten. "Then what is to be done with me?" The council did not answer at once. Finally, the eldest among them spoke. His voice carried a weight that pressed down on everyone in the room. "You will go to them." Rallos blinked. "To the humans?" "Yes. They have summoned you." The words struck like a blade. Summoned? By humans? Rallos felt his blood turn cold. How do they know me?" "They always know," the elder said simply. "The moment you looked into them, they looked into you. They remember." Rallos's heart pounded. He wanted to refuse, to shout, to fight, but he knew it was useless. The council had already decided. "Why me?" he whispered. "Because you are the one who crossed the line," the elder replied. "And because they asked for you, by name." The chamber grew colder. Even Rallos, who had once feared nothing, felt his knees weaken. Within the next cycle, Rallos was placed on a small vessel, stripped of command, stripped of crew. He would travel alone to the meeting point given by the humans. A set of coordinates deep within unclaimed space. As the ship launched, Rallos sat in silence, staring at the stars. His mind raced with questions, but none had answers. The humans had called for him. Out of the countless ships and captains in the galaxy, they had chosen him. The journey took days. Each night he dreamed of the destroyer, of its glowing eyes and beating heart. Each night he woke drenched in cold sweat. Finally, on the last day, the ship's sensors picked up a signal. Not a transmission, not a message, but a simple beacon. A pulse of energy, steady and calm. The coordinates matched. He had arrived. And there it was. The same destroyer. Floating silent. Waiting. Rallows's throat tightened. He had imagined it countless times, but seeing it again sent a chill through his bones. The ship looked unchanged, yet it felt aware. As if it had been waiting only for him. The beacon stopped. His own ship went dark. No alarms, no explosions, just silence. Systems powered down one by one, leaving only life support. He could do nothing. Then a voice filled the cabin. Not from the speakers, not from any device, but inside his head. Clear. Calm. Human. Captain Rallows of the Ketheri Dominion. You looked where you should not. Now you will understand. Rallows's hands shook. His mouth went dry. He wanted to speak, but the voice continued. You wonder why no one dares to scan us. You wonder what we hide. You wonder what stares back. The lights in the cabin flickered. The viewport darkened until nothing but the destroyer remained. Then, slowly, impossibly, the ship began to change. The steel twisted. The shape bent. It was no longer a vessel of metal but something deeper, something alive. Rallows saw faces in the steel, countless faces screaming and silent all at once. He saw stars collapsing, battles fought, worlds burning. He saw shadows older than the galaxy itself. And through it all, one truth pressed against his mind, breaking it open. The humans were not alone inside their ships. Their ships carried something with them. Something vast. Something hungry. And it had seen him. The cabin grew colder as the destroyer's shadow filled the viewport. Captain Rallows sat frozen, breath shallow, heart hammering. He wanted to shut his eyes, but he could not. Something deeper than fear kept them open, forcing him to look. Then, the faces in the steel faded. The screaming ended. The ship grew still again, silent and solid, as if nothing had happened. Rallows gasped, realizing he had been holding his breath. The voice returned, calm but unyielding. Prepare yourself. You will see what others are not allowed to see. The air shimmered. The cabin lights dimmed, and suddenly he was no longer inside his own vessel. He stood on the bridge of the human destroyer. The shift was seamless, like stepping through a dream. His knees weakened as he realized where he was. The room was vast, lined with cold steel, yet it pulsed with quiet life, as if the walls themselves breathed. At the center stood a human. She was tall, her eyes sharp and unblinking. Her uniform was plain, black with no rank visible. She looked ordinary in every way. 2 eyes, 2 arms, pale skin. Yet nothing about her felt ordinary. When her gaze locked on him, Rallows felt as though the stars themselves had turned to watch. Captain Rallows, she said. Her voice was steady, almost gentle, yet it carried power. You crossed a line. Rallows swallowed hard. I did not know. I sought only information. I acted as a soldier. The woman tilted her head, studying him. And what did you find when you looked at us? His throat tightened. Memories of faces in the steel, shadows, and burning worlds flashed before him. He forced the words out. I found something that should not exist. She nodded slowly, as if pleased by the answer. Then you understand why the warning exists. You are not the first to test it. You will not be the last. But most who try, do not walk away. Rallows's blood ran cold. Then why am I here? Why let me live? The woman stepped closer. Her eyes seemed brighter now, reflecting light that wasn't there. Because you must carry the truth. Because your people need to remember the cost. Her words struck deep. Rallows frowned. You want me to spread fear? Not fear, she corrected. Respect. The silence that followed was heavy. Rallows struggled to hold her gaze, every instinct telling him to look away, yet he couldn't. At last he whispered, What are you? The woman smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. We are human. Rallos shook his head. No. That is not all. I saw something else. In your ship. Inside it. Around it. Shadows. Screaming. What are they? For the first time, her expression darkened. She glanced at the steel walls around them. The hum of the ship grew louder, like a heartbeat echoing through the bridge. They are what you would call memory, she said softly. Every ship carries them. Every battle leaves them behind. We do not forget our dead. We do not release them. They stay with us. Always. Rallos's chest tightened. You trap souls. We carry them, she corrected. Their rage, their pain, their strength. When you scanned us, you touched all of them at once. That is why you nearly broke. Rallos's hands shook. He imagined thousands of voices screaming inside the steel, waiting for release that never came. That is madness. No species should carry such weight. The woman's eyes hardened. It is the only way we survived. The galaxy is not kind. Others looked at us as prey. So we became something more. We became the abyss. Her words cut like blades. Rallos wanted to argue, to call her a liar, but he couldn't. Deep inside, he knew she spoke truth. He had felt it himself when their ship had looked back at him. The woman stepped closer, so close that he felt her breath. Now you understand why no one dares scan us. It is not because we strike back. It is because when you look into us, you see everything we have endured. And you realize, you cannot carry it. Rallos's mouth was dry. His pride, his defiance, all had melted away. In their place was only silence. The woman turned away, her hands clasped behind her back. You will leave here alive. You will tell your leaders what you saw. And you will remind them, respect the line. Do not cross it again. Rallos stared at her back, anger and fear twisting inside him. And if they do not listen, he asked quietly. The hum of the ship grew louder. The steel around him seemed to darken, faces flickering in the metal, their eyes glowing faintly. Then, the woman said without turning, they will see what lies beyond the abyss, and they will not return. The vision ended. Rallos found himself back in his own cabin, trembling. His ship systems flickered back to life, as if nothing had happened. Yet he knew. Captain Rallos returned to the Dominion as a changed man. His people expected him to walk with pride, to boast of victories, but he came back silent. His eyes no longer burned with arrogance. Instead, they carried a shadow that others could not ignore. When he spoke before the High Council, his voice was calm but heavy. He told them of the human destroyer. He told them of the faces in the steel, of the memory that lived inside their ships, of the woman who had warned him. He told them everything. The chamber was silent when he finished. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances, their scaled hands twitching. Finally, one spoke. Do you expect us to believe such madness? That humans carry the souls of their dead inside their ships? Rallos held their gaze. I did not believe at first. But I saw it. I felt it. If you test them, if you look too deep, you will not survive. Another counselor hissed. Fear has broken you, Captain. The humans clouded your mind. You are not the warrior you once were. The words stung, but Rallos did not answer. He had no pride left to defend. Only truth. The council dismissed him. Some were shaken, some were skeptical, and some whispered that perhaps the humans had already taken hold of him. Rallos left the chamber with no allies, only silence at his back. But the story could not be buried. It slipped out from the council walls, whispered by aides, carried by officers. Soon it reached not only the Dominion but other empires across the galaxy. The Arachne swarm heard first. A race of insectoid warriors, they had long despised humans. To them, Rallos's warning was not a threat but an insult. They hide their weakness behind ghost stories, hissed over Queen Syrinx, her mandibles clacking in disdain. Humans are fragile. Their ships are crude. I will prove it. Her words became law. Within days, an Arachne fleet of 20 warships moved into unclaimed space, seeking out a human vessel. Rallos heard of it too late. He tried to warn them, but the swarm did not listen to outsiders. They only listened to the Overqueen, and she hungered for conquest. The Arachne fleet found what it sought. A human cruiser, alone, patrolling near a quiet star. It was sleek and gray, moving slow, a single predator drifting in the dark. The swarm descended upon it, 20 against 1. Their ships spread like a net, claws ready to tear apart their prey. On the Arachne flagship, Syrinx watched the human vessel with cold triumph. "Begin the scan," she ordered. Her officers obeyed. At first, it was easy. Their scanners touched the human ship, mapping its weapons, its engines, its crew. Syrinx's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. See. Nothing but metal and flesh. Weakness wrapped in fear. But then the data began to twist. Readings shifted, bent, broke. The human ship's numbers stretched into impossibilities. Its crew count rose from hundreds to thousands to millions, then collapsed back to zero. Its weapons registered as both empty and infinite. Its engines pulsed with energy that did not exist on any chart. The officers froze. One stammered, "Overqueen, something is wrong." Syrinx bared her teeth. "Do not stop. Press deeper. Show me the truth." The scanners obeyed. And the abyss looked back. The bridge lights flickered. Shadows crawled across the walls, forming faces that screamed without sound. The officers clutched their heads, shrieking, their compound eyes wide with terror. Syrinx staggered as the weight pressed against her mind. She saw battles fought long before her species had crawled from their nests. She saw human dead staring at her with hollow eyes. She saw fire consuming worlds, and through it all, one truth whispered into her soul. You should not have looked. The human cruiser did not fire a shot. It did not need to. One by one, the Arachne ships fell silent. Their engines died, their weapons froze, their crews collapsed into madness. Syrinx screamed commands, but none answered. She was alone, her fleet broken not by force, but by what they had seen. Her last sight before darkness claimed her was the human cruiser drifting calmly, its lights glowing like cold stars. When traders found the wreckage days later, they reported no signs of battle. The Arachne ships were intact, undamaged, yet lifeless. Not a single crew survived. Their bodies lay twisted, faces frozen in terror, as if they had all died staring into something that should never be seen. The story spread faster than fire. And across the galaxy, whispers grew louder. No one dares scan a human warship. Not anymore. The death of the Arachne fleet spread across the galaxy like a storm. Traders carried the story from system to system. Smugglers told it in the shadows. Soldiers whispered it in their barracks. 20 warships, gone without a single shot fired. No survivors. No damage. Nothing but silence and fear left behind. For some, it was proof that the old warnings were true. For others, it was a challenge. Not every species believed. Not every empire was willing to accept that humans, fragile and small compared to many, carried such terror within their ships. The Great Union of Stars, a coalition of proud and ancient races, called for a meeting. Leaders gathered in a colossal station orbiting a dying sun. There were reptilian lords, crystalline envoys, machine minds wearing bodies of light. And among them sat a lone seat for the Ketheri Dominion, filled by Captain Rallos. He was no longer a commander. He had no fleet, no crew. Yet he was summoned because he was the one who had stood before the humans and lived. He was the one who had warned and been ignored. The chamber was vast, full of voices arguing. Stories and fear, hissed the crystalline envoy. Nothing more. The Arachne fell because they were weak. Then why were their ships untouched? Demanded a reptilian lord. Why did not one survive? Trickery. Illusion. They did not imagine their own deaths. The voices grew louder, clashing like blades. Finally, Rallos rose. His body felt heavy, but his voice carried through the chamber. "You are fools." The voices stilled. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. "You sit here in comfort, wrapped in pride, while you speak of humans as if they are prey. But you have not seen what I have seen. You have not stood inside their ship. You have not looked into the abyss." Some hissed at his words, but none interrupted. Rallos's eyes burned with something harder than fear. "I tell you this, if you push them, if you test them, they will not fight you with weapons. They will fight you with what lies within. And you will break." Silence stretched across the chamber. Finally, a machine mind spoke, its voice deep and echoing. "Then what do you suggest, Captain? That we bow before them? That we treat them as gods?" Rallos shook his head slowly. "Not gods. Survivors. Respect them, or you will share the fate of the Arachne." Murmurs spread. Some looked shaken. Others looked defiant. Pride burned too deeply in many hearts to accept such words. The crystalline envoy rose, its body glowing with sharp light. "I refuse to fear them. If they are so dangerous, then we must destroy them before they spread further." A murmur of agreement followed. Some nodded, their eyes hard. Rallos felt his chest tighten. He saw it in their faces, the same arrogance he had once carried. They had not felt the weight of the abyss. They did not understand. "You cannot destroy them," Rallos said firmly. "Even if you gather every fleet, even if you bring every weapon. You cannot kill what stares back from inside their ships. You will only feed it." The envoy sneered. "Then we will see for ourselves." Rallos closed his eyes. He knew then that nothing he said would stop them. Pride was louder than truth. The council dissolved in chaos, empires leaving with their own decisions. Some swore never to cross the humans. Others swore to test them, to find weakness, to prove they were not untouchable. Rallos walked out alone. He felt older, heavier, as if the shadows of the destroyer still clung to him. The stars outside the station glowed faintly, but he saw no beauty in them anymore. Later, in the quiet of his chamber, he poured a drink with shaking hands. He thought of the human woman, her cold eyes, her steady voice. Respect, not fear, she had said. But he knew the galaxy too well. Pride would not allow respect. Pride would demand blood. And when that day came, when fleets gathered against humanity, Rallos feared he already knew the end. He raised the glass but did not drink. Instead, he whispered into the silence, as if the stars themselves could hear. "Forgive them. They do not understand what waits for them." And far away, somewhere in the dark, a human warship drifted silently, its lights pulsing like the slow beat of a heart. Watching, waiting, remembering. The galaxy burned with pride. Despite warnings, despite stories, despite the silence of the Arachne fleet, the empires gathered their strength. They called it the Cleansing War. Hundreds of ships, dozens of races, a grand coalition united for one purpose: to prove humans were not untouchable. At the edge of the Orion sector, their fleets assembled. Countless warships filled the void, weapons glowing, banners shining. They came not only to destroy humans but to erase the fear their name carried. Captain Rallos stood on a small observation deck aboard a neutral station, forced to watch as history prepared to break. His hands trembled. He had warned them. He had begged them. But pride was louder than wisdom. And then, the humans arrived. Not many. Not a grand armada. Only 3 warships. The coalition laughed at first. 3 against hundreds. It seemed absurd. A reptilian lord sneered across the comnet. Is this their mighty force? 3 rusting hulks. But Rallos's chest grew tight. He recognized them. One of those ships was the destroyer. The same eyes that had looked into him before. The fleets moved into position. The coalition's commanders prepared their scans, ready to peel away every secret of the human ships. "Begin," the order came. The beams reached out, invisible lines of light, touching the human vessels. For a moment, everything was still. Then the abyss opened. The void screamed. The coalition ships froze as their scans were turned back upon them. Every vessel, every soldier, every commander was suddenly staring into themselves. They saw their wars, their betrayals, their buried sins. They saw their dead staring at them, accusing, unending. But that was only the beginning. Then came the human memories. Millions of voices poured into their minds. Soldiers who had fought in trenches filled with mud and fire. Captains who had watched worlds burn around them. Children who had died screaming under alien suns. Every human war, every human death, every human scream, pressed into the steel of their ships, carried forward like eternal shadows. The coalition fleets broke. Officers clawed at their own faces, begging the voices to stop. Ships fired blindly at nothing, striking allies instead of enemies. The void filled with chaos, not from battle, but from madness. The 3 human warships did not move. They did not fire. They only watched. Rallos fell to his knees. Tears stung his eyes as he whispered, "Stop! Please stop!" But the abyss had no mercy. One by one, coalition ships went silent. Some shut down. Some drifted. Some simply imploded, their crews tearing themselves apart. The proud armada, the strongest gathering in galactic history, was erased in less than an hour, without a single human shot fired. At last, silence returned. Only wreckage and shadows remained, drifting among the stars. The 3 human ships turned slowly, their lights glowing like cold suns. Then they vanished into jump space, leaving the battlefield behind as if it had never mattered. Rallos sat trembling in the silence. His mind echoed with the same words he had seen on the screen the first time. "Do not look into the abyss, for the abyss will look into you." He understood now. The real reason no one dared scan a human warship was not fear of their weapons, nor even the memories they carried. It was because those who looked saw too much. They saw what humanity had become after endless survival. They saw the weight no other race could carry without breaking. And once you saw it, you could never forget. The galaxy learned its lesson that day. From that time forward, no council, no commander, no empire ever dared to scan a human warship again. Traders gave them space. Armies looked away. Even the boldest pirates fled at the first sight of human steel. Captain Rallos lived long enough to watch this new order take hold. He carried the shadow in his eyes until his last breath. And in his final moments, as the stars dimmed around him, he whispered the truth he had learned, the truth he had carried since that first meeting. Respect them, or be broken by them. And somewhere, in the endless dark, a human warship drifted on. Silent. Waiting. Watching. Carrying the voices of its dead. The abyss that no one dared to touch again.